If it feels like Google is keeping you trapped in a loop every time you use AI mode, it's because they actually are. Not metaphorically, literally. Across over 1.3 million citations analyzed inside Google's AI mode responses, the most cited website wasn't Wikipedia. It wasn't Reddit. It wasn't a news site. It was, Google itself. You may not have noticed it yet, but while answering your questions, AI mode is quietly funneling you right back to Google. And the numbers behind that are more than a little alarming. In this video, I'm walking you through the data, why it matters for your site, and more importantly, how your SEO strategy can survive it in 2026. So let's look at what this actually means in practice. In our study of 68,000 keywords across 20 industries and more than 1.3 million citations analyzed, Google.com came out as the single most cited domain inside AI mode responses. Google.com accounts for 17.42% of all citations. That's more than the next 6 domains combined: YouTube, Facebook, Reddit, Amazon, Indeed, and Zillow. And when you add YouTube, which Google also owns, roughly 1 in 5 citations points back to a Google property. Here's how this plays out in reality. You type a question into AI mode. Google generates an answer. Then the citations it includes send you to another Google search results page. So the journey becomes search, AI answer, search again. That's the loop. If you look at where those Google.com links actually lead, 59% go directly to Google SERPs, and another 36% go to Google business profiles. So less than 5% of Google's self-citations lead anywhere else. And every time a user follows one of those citations back to Google instead of to your website, that is a visit you will never get. A reader, a customer, a lead that stays inside Google's ecosystem. Now you know how big this habit is. But what most people don't realize is how fast it got here. This is what surprised me even more. This loop didn't always look like this. Less than a year ago, in June 2025, Google's self-citation rate inside AI mode was 5.7%. Today, it's 17.42%. That means Google's presence inside its own AI answers tripled in under 12 months. And that growth trajectory matters because if it went from 5% to 17% in a year, who knows where it will land a year from now? And here's what makes it worse. We've seen this before in the study conducted last year. Back then, AI overviews already sent users back to Google 43% of the time. So AI mode inherited that habit and then tripled it. To understand why this is happening so quickly, you have to look at it from Google's perspective. When citations send users back to Google instead of out to the web, it creates a closed traffic loop. Every time a user stays inside Google's ecosystem, that's another opportunity for Google to monetize the interaction, whether that's through ads, map searches, YouTube views, or shopping results. But there's another shift happening that most people haven't noticed yet. Back in mid-2025, 97.9% of Google.com citations inside AI mode pointed to Google business profiles, mostly local listings. That actually makes sense. If someone searches dentist near me, linking to a Google business profile is reasonable. But today, the pattern looks completely different. 59% of Google's self-citations now point to organic search results pages, not local listings, full search results, which means AI mode isn't just linking back to Google for local queries anymore. It's doing it for informational searches too. Research, how-to, and decision-making queries. Okay. So now you know the pattern. Google is citing itself more and more inside AI mode. Stick around till the end because we're going to get into exactly what you can do about it. But first, here's the part that surprised us the most when we looked deeper into the data. Not every niche is affected the same way. We analyzed citations across 20 different industries, everything from travel and entertainment to career and jobs. And while Google dominates almost everywhere, the scale of that dominance varies dramatically. Some niches are what I'd call high displacement zones. Travel is the most extreme example. Over 53% of all citations point back to Google. Entertainment and hobbies isn't far behind, with 49% of citations pointing back to the search giant. Real estate sits at around 30%. But then we found one niche that behaves completely differently: careers and jobs. This is the only category where Google doesn't hold the top spot. Instead, Indeed is cited 3.1 times more often than Google. And the reason is actually pretty logical. If someone is looking for a job, the most useful source isn't a search results page. It's a platform with actual listings and structured job data. Google's AI appears to recognize that the real value lives on platforms like Indeed and LinkedIn, not inside generic search results. And that reveals something important about how AI mode chooses its sources. It cites what it considers most useful for that specific query type. So, what does this mean practically? If you're in travel, entertainment, or real estate, you're operating in a high displacement environment where Google properties dominate citations. But if you're in finance or insurance, Google's share is much lower, around 5 to 6%, which suggests that credentialed expert sources still carry more weight there. And if you're in careers and jobs, the lesson is even clearer. Sometimes being present on the right platform matters more than ranking your own website. Actually, I'm curious where you land on this. Drop your niche in the comments. I want to see which industries are watching this video most. And if this data surprised you, a like helps us keep this kind of videos coming. Okay, here's what I want to spend the rest of this video on. What do you actually do with all of this? If Google's AI increasingly keeps users inside its own ecosystem, how do you still get visibility and traffic? Here are 4 ways to operate inside the Google AI loop instead of getting pushed out of it. One of the easiest ways to appear in AI mode is still ranking in regular search. This might sound counterintuitive after everything we just discussed, but the data actually points to the opposite direction of what many people assume. Again, 59% of Google's self-citations in AI mode point to organic search results pages, which means when Google's AI links to a SERP, it's often surfacing pages that already rank well there. So, if your page ranks on page 1, it has a much higher chance of appearing in the ecosystem AI mode is pulling from, even when the citation itself points to a search results page. In other words, strong content, solid technical SEO, internal linking, and authority signals are still your entry ticket into AI visibility. The sites getting deprioritized in AI mode aren't the ones who did traditional SEO. They are the ones who didn't. Second, your Google business profile is a citation source. Treat it like one. This is something many local businesses are overlooking right now. 36% of Google's self-citations still go to Google business profiles. If you're a local business, your GBP listing is an asset Google's AI actively cites. The non-obvious move: don't just keep your NAP consistent. Write your business description with the same thought you'd give a landing page. Make sure your business information is complete and consistent, and actively encourage customers to leave reviews. Third, map the sources AI already trusts in your niche. Remember the examples from the career and jobs niche. AI mode heavily cites platforms like Indeed and LinkedIn. That tells us something important. In some industries, visibility doesn't come from ranking your own site first. It comes from appearing on the platforms AI already trusts. So, here's a simple way to uncover the pattern in your own niche. Take 5 to 10 queries your audience searches for. Run them in AI mode. Don't analyze the answer itself, analyze the citations. Write down every domain that appears. Do that across 20 or 30 queries, and you'll start seeing patterns quickly. The same domains will appear again and again. Those domains are essentially AI mode's trusted source layer in your industry. Once you know that layer, you can reverse engineer what AI already considers authoritative, whether that's structured data, expert authorship, review platforms, or Q&A style content. And fourth, start tracking AI visibility separately, right now. This last one is the difference between guessing and knowing. Traditional rank tracking tells you where you stand in organic search. Useful, but incomplete. You can rank on page 1 and still be completely invisible in AI mode. or get cited in AI mode without having a top ranking. These are two different visibility systems, and most people are only measuring one. And look, I'd be doing you a disservice if I didn't mention that SEO Ranking actually built a tool specifically for this. But genuinely, the AI mode tracker is what we use to pull the data for this entire study. You can see which of your pages are being cited, track brand mentions even when they're not linked, and find out which competitor content AI mode is pulling from instead of yours. That last one is particularly useful for finding gaps fast. Do these 4 things and you will build the kind of presence that's hard to displace, whatever comes next. Now, let me zoom out for a second, because there's a conversation happening in the SEO industry right now that goes beyond tactics, and I think it's worth acknowledging. When a single company accounts for 17% of all citations inside its own AI product, and that tripled in under a year, we're watching something genuinely new happen to the web. The open web was built on a simple idea: publish something good, get discovered. Search engines were supposed to be neutral bridges between questions and content, but AI mode changes the structure of that bridge. Increasingly, the bridge leads back to the platform that built it. One of the SEO experts we spoke to during the research put it very clearly. When the world's largest search engine becomes its own primary source, the open web starts shrinking. Now, I'm not saying Google is doing anything illegal here. They're just a business optimizing their product. But as publishers, marketers, and SEO professionals, we should be clear-eyed about what's happening. And that's exactly why understanding these patterns and adapting early matters so much right now. The people who ignore these shifts will find themselves reacting to them later. The people who study them today are the ones most likely to stay visible tomorrow. Now you understand the loop, why it exists, how fast it's growing, and which niches it hits hardest. The next step is actually measuring where you stand inside AI mode right now, because you can't fix what you can't see. There's a full breakdown of what specific signals AI mode responds to and how to optimize your content to get cited, and it's in this video right here. Watch it next.